You are now joining Children of the Watch.
Hello there. My name is Alex Maxwell, and joining me, as always, is
General Kenobi, Mac Lacey. Alex,
yes,
we got Kenobi trailer.
and it's earlier than what we anticipated, which tells me that they really want to promote this because they know that it's going to be special, and that excites me in all kinds of ways. I cannot wait to break down every single image, line in this trailer and give you, some might call, irresponsible speculation along the way.
Ooh.
So if you're just now joining us for the very first time, maybe you're looking for a podcast to break down what you just saw in the Obi Wan Kenobi teaser trailer. We are Children of the Watch, and we are a Star Wars after show for Star Wars television. We originally started as the Mandalorian Watch, but changed our name to expand our brand so that we can cover all of it, including Obi Wan Kenobi. And I think that will do it for the business, because I think people just want to hear.
Yeah, we got so
Obi-Wan.
much to talk about, so much to cover. I think we should probably just get on into it, right?
Right. So let's start actually with the EW images that they released before the trailer actually came out, because it gives us some really good information that kind of informs some things for us in the trailer. So This is what EW said. What kind of Obi Wan Kenobi will we meet in Obi Wan Kenobi? Says star Ewan McGregor, we find Obi-Wan at the beginning of our story rather broken and faithless and beaten and somewhat given up.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be the logical starting place, right? I mean, we've just gone through the Clone Wars, the Republic lost, won, but became the Empire. The Jedi definitely lost. But yeah, and I mean, I think this is going to be, this show has so much it has to do, right? It has to bridge not only sort of on screen the prequel era to the Imperial era. It has to develop Obi-Wan from who we see in Revenge of the Sith into Alec Guinness from New Hope, which, I hope there's some dermatology explanation as far as what Tatooine does to one's skin, because
both him and Owen.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense that this story is going to have to be about Obi-Wan becoming isolated. I mean, he's all alone, both kind of as a Jedi, because I mean, he knows Yoda survived, but he's in exile. So I mean, does Obi-Wan think he's the last Jedi in the galaxy? Possibly, I don't know.
Maybe.
But yeah, so I mean, it's gonna be. I think we're gonna get to the heart of what the Jedi Order should be about, and like big truths about the Force, and we're gonna get those through Obi-Wan's struggles, and his self-doubt.
Absolutely. And I'm very excited too, because we're going to get some new characters in this, and they showed us some images of some of these new characters, including the new Inquisitor Reva, played by Moses Ingram, and she's going to provide she will prove to be a formidable new foe as she seeks out Jedi in hiding for the Empire. Director Deborah Chow and writer Joby Harold described the character as ruthlessly ambitious. And so we got to see a little bit of her before the trailer actually premiered. And what's really cool about what we're seeing from these images is that it's so consistent with what we've seen with Inquisitors already in Star Wars Rebels when they were first introduced, and also the comics, the Darth Vader comics that we see a lot of them in as well, and Jedi Fallen Order. So that's really, really cool, and we get to meet a brand new Inquisitor named Reva. She's got an interesting name.
It harkens to another dark side user. Just kind of missing a letter there, but...
Yeah, and like, I guess, would you pronounce it Reva or Reva? Reva sounds too much like Reba, and then I imagine Reba as a Jedi Inquisitor, and then it's...
Yeah, and like seeing it written out it obviously is going to bring to mind Revan,
Yes.
you know, the kind of the villain from KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic,
Or Hero,
or Hero, depending. Yeah,
on your point of view.
depends on how you play.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so for anybody who's kind of fresh, coming to this podcast, hasn't watched Rebels or anything like that, the Inquisitors are basically this group of dark side users. So they're not full-fledged Sith, but they do have Force abilities. They're basically Darth Vader's personal like ring wraiths, if to make a Lord of the Rings analogy, you know. They're basically instrumental in carrying out the rest of the Jedi purge.
Absolutely.
So the Empire is trying to get rid of all the Jedi. Vader is at the head of that, and he's using the Inquisitors kind of as his foot soldiers.
Yeah, and we'll get into that more as we break down the trailer.
Yeah.
And I'll explain some things about who leads the Inquisitors and where they're stationed at and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see these images. And then McGregor's Obi Wan Kenobi is a master Jedi and a master of decluttering, as evidenced by his sparse dwelling on Tatooine, where he has set up shop to watch over a young Luke Skywalker. And in this image that they showed of him in a cave, it's got some steps down into the dwelling of a cave. I'm wondering, either is this under his home that he has in A New Hope, or has he not built his home in A New Hope yet in the Jedland Wastes?
Yeah,
pretty
that's a great question. Caves kind of have some significance in Star Wars, as far as a lot of Force users go into a cave to kind of be tested. That's kind of a common theme throughout Star Wars. And so I'm thinking that this image is sort of pointing towards that for Obi-Wan, right?
It'd be a great place for him to meet a Force ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn.
I was thinking the same thing. You could, you know, I think the actual effect would be really good in there. You know, it's a dark cave and then suddenly a bright blue figure of Qui-Gon, you know. And we know that because Master and Apprentice, the story in from a certain point of view indicates that he's in communion with Qui-Gon at this time, you know. So
Yep. And then we got some more information about Reva. Ingram says that they share a common dark side goal, talking about the villainous trio of Reva, the Grand Inquisitor, and Darth Vader. They're on the same team. As for what stands out most to Ingram about her big bad, she says it's all heart. And again, we'll talk about that more as we break down the trailer in just a moment. But that confirmed before the trailer even came out that the Grand Inquisitor would be in this, and then we got to see him in the trailer. And again, we'll explain who he is in just a moment. And then what's really cool too is Joel Edgerton is back as Uncle Owen, and we don't necessarily like his odds in a face-off with Reva. And then Deborah Chow said this: "Thank you, George, for casting Joel Edgerton as Uncle Owen. That's all I can say." So, like, what's really cool is he was he played Uncle Owen in episode 2 and 3 when the prequels came out, and he wasn't super well known when those movies were out, but now he is kind of a well-known actor. So it's really cool to see this kind of come full circle and have Uncle Owen be portrayed again on the what is this? The TV screen?
The small screen, but
small screen.
Yeah, there's the silver screen and the small screen.
I would like to see this in theaters, though. I'm not gonna lie.
I wonder if there's a market for that, for theaters to just sell. I'm sure there's some legal stuff going on with it, but like if there would be a way to do like we're gonna screen 3 episodes of The Mandalorian or The Book of Boba Fett or Obi-Wan, and like do little installments like that.
Yeah.
I would go to that probably.
Absolutely. And then finally, it says McGregor is all cloaked up again as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's got places to go, like the new planet of Daiyu, which sort of has a Hong Kong feel to it, says writer Joby Harold. It's got a graffiti-ridden nightlife, and it's kind of edgy. It's just got a different lane and a different feeling. So, again, we get confirmation from the images before the trailer came out that Obi-Wan does indeed leave Tatooine. So I think it's good that they're showing these images in the pictures that they have in the EW article and in the trailer, just to kind of set people's expectations of, hey, yeah, he does leave Tatooine in this story, because a lot of people I know were kind of upset at this suggestion that Obi-Wan would ever leave Tatooine. But again, as we break down the trailer, we're going to talk about what are some things that would cause him to leave.
Yeah.
And I think it all comes back to protecting Luke and or Leia.
Other Jedi.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Or other Jedi. Yeah. For sure. And so, and then a new image came out today of Darth Vader, portrayed by Hayden Christensen. I don't have that one ready on our little roll here, but it says, Hayden actually said, we're going to see a very powerful Vader, kind of likening him to how he was portrayed in Rogue One.
Yeah.
And then Ewan
we have the technology now.
Ewan said this quote, which I found very interesting. It was like time hadn't happened. I look over at Hayden, and he's Anakin now. I'm Obi-Wan now. It was like the period between episode 3 and now didn't exist. And that, to me, confirms that we are going to see some flashbacks of Anakin and Obi-Wan, and it's not just Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. And I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, especially like as it informs Obi-Wan's internal struggles, right? Like I want to see those moments where he feels like, oh, if I had only done this different, or if I had only done more or less, you know? I want to see how that's all kind of boiling around in his mind. Yeah, I'm excited to see the dynamics between the two.
Me too. So, okay. That does it for the EW article and images. You can find those images by Googling or check out the YouTube if you're listening on the podcast. We just showed those on the screen as well. I think we should get into the trailer breakdown. I've got 6 pages of notes on 1 minute and 46 seconds of a teaser.
Incredible.
If that says anything about how these breakdowns will be for each Obi Wan Kenobi episode, you better get it ready, because there's so much that we're going to have to talk about, and I can't wait to dive in. So let's do it.
Let's do it.
We fade in on Tatooine, and our focus is on a rock, and in the distance we can see Obi-Wan riding his Eopie. Mm-hmm. It actually this opening reminded me of the opening of The Last Jedi teaser.
Okay, yeah.
With the rock, and then you see Rey's hand slam down. Very similar music cue as well.
Yeah. Raw.
Yeah.
Unchained power, whatever it is.
Yeah. And we actually see the winds of Tatooine scatter some of the pebbles. And it's something, Mac, that I'm starting to pick up on in the marketing of this show. Like, even in the Obi Wan Kenobi title card, the wind is scattering the Obi Wan Kenobi letters.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, what do you think that kind of represents? Because it kind of seems like they're making an emphasis on how, like, sands wipe things away.
Yeah, I could see it speaking to a few different things. And it's all going to depend on, you know, how the show goes, right? There's kind of this this imagery that it brings up of, like, diaspora, almost like this exile of Jedi, and so kind of being thrown to the wind, you know, those who are still left. That's sort of what it tells me, and it's speaking to what I think might end up being the core conflict of the series. You know, maybe the reason why Obi-Wan's leaving Tatooine.
Interesting.
But we can talk about that a little bit later.
Interesting. Okay, I like that. To me, it's also kind of like, maybe it's saying, like, the Obi-Wan Kenobi name and, like, who he used to be is going away.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he should be going by Ben at this point anyway, but also, like, I think he's starting to realize too, and maybe the lesson he needs to learn in the series is he's not the hero anymore. He's got to get the next generation ready to be the hero.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe what he's going to learn in the show. So we cut to black and open back up on Obi-Wan riding his Eopie through the streets of... actually, he's walking the Eopie through the streets of Mos Eisley. And what's really cool is that they've done a good job of making this look like Mos Eisley, because we just spent a whole series in Mos Espa with Boba Fett.
Right.
And this looks different. Like it looks like Mos Eisley, like we saw in A New Hope, and even in some episodes of The Mandalorian. And we saw a little bit of it in the Book of Boba Fett as well, but just the hangar portion of Mos Eisley. So it's cool to be back there.
Yeah, it's a little bit more worn, little seedier maybe.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see it again.
So then we get a quick cut of what I assume is people or workers unloading from that transport we see later in the trailer. And Obi-Wan looks like he's getting some sort of equipment or clothing. Here's my guess. He is working as some sort of miner right now.
Yeah.
Did you get that vibe too?
Yeah, it had big kind of work camp feels.
Yeah.
Like he both the kind of the transport we see, I think later in the trailer, but it had, that feeling of like, okay, so Pacific Rim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you've got this hotshot Jaeger pilot, right, and then you find him just like working this construction job.
But when I'm in a Jaeger.
Yeah. It kind of feels like that to me.
It does. Yeah, like he's incognito, but he needs a job so he can do this, and that's what he does. Now, it could just be a transport, but just based on the image that we saw, it does look like he's working.
Yeah. And I love the idea of somebody who's used to like leading armies and handling like these intergalactic political conflicts, having to like
a normal job,
cope with being working a 9 to 5.
Yeah, that's amazing. So okay, what could they be mining? I did a deep dive based on Obi-Wan's location to Mos Eisley and where he lives in the Jedlin Waste in A New Hope. So here's what they could be mining. The Frick Metal Mine was located on the planet Tatooine on the northern edge of the Jedlin Waste in Quadrant 1 on Tatooine navigation system. Here, the rare metallic compound of Frick was harvested and then refined and purified. What that's used for, I have no freaking idea.
I think it all just... Babu Frick loves it. The little dude from... Rise of Skywalker. I think he just loves that. It's got a shiny quality he likes or something like that, and they just bring it all to him.
Yeah. Yep. So then we fade out and into Obi-Wan riding on his Eopie through the Tatooine desert. Obviously, he likes traveling on this Eopie. I'm imagining this is the exact same Eopie that we saw him on in the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
And like this is just like his only companion for 10 years.
I love it. Yeah.
Right?
It's like just a guy like, mountain man with his dog,
I bet he's named it Anakin. Right?
Or Satine.
No. We'll explain who Satine is in our History of Obi Wan Kenobi episode that we do before the show premieres, and we'll give you everything you need to know about Obi Wan Kenobi
all
in
the
that episode.
Steamy details.
Obi Wan did have a girlfriend at one point.
He did.
And her name was Satine. She was a Mandalorian. Pretty interesting.
Wow.
Now, I want to point out the audio as well, because I think the audio actually does a lot of work for this trailer.
Mm-hmm.
During these scenes, we hear a slow rendition of the Battle of Heroes, and that's the music that played in Revenge of the Sith when Anakin and Obi-Wan fought. It's a much slower, kind of defeated sound to it, but it's still that Battle of Heroes theme.
It's also, I think, the title screen music for Battlefront 2. I think.
The original Battlefront 2?
Yeah, the original one,
Yeah.
not the... Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then Obi-Wan actually has a voiceover, and he says, "The fight is done. We lost." Now, here's my question that I want to come back later to in this breakdown, but I want you to remember this. Who is he talking to? Because so many times we could be listening to something and not even think about who he's saying that to. I think that's important because he says, "The fight is done. We lost."
Yeah, and it all feeds into my theory of what the main conflict of the show might be about, because we means a lot it means a different thing now in this time period than it did in the Clone Wars.
Yes. That's a great point.
Because it's not just like the Republic.
Right.
I think it's talking about the Jedi, you know?
Absolutely. And then we fade out and into Obi-Wan sitting at the mouth of a cave-like entrance. And there's something small beside him. And I couldn't tell if it was like a creature or not at first.
Or maybe a little droid.
Or a little droid. I think on further like analyzing this, I think it's a canteen. I think it's water. I think it's just water, and he's sitting outside of his home, I think, where the cave is that we saw in the EW images earlier, and I think that's where he's sitting at. Very reminiscent kind of where we find Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, by the way, in terms of the exile and maybe not wanting to get involved, or maybe he does. It's kind of, we don't know where Obi-Wan's headspace is at this moment.
I mean, the struggle might be wanting to get involved, but knowing you can't at the moment.
Which is the opposite of what Luke
exactly
faced. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I like. I like it being kind of the flip side of that coin.
I do too. And so then we fade into a macro binocular view of the Lars homestead, and we see Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru emerging from their home, and then a little Luke Skywalker sitting on top of the door entrance.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's got goggles on. They kind of look like pod racing goggles, and his movements even kind of look the way Anakin was driving the pod racer in The Phantom Menace.
He looks a lot like little Anakin and acting like Anakin in this moment. It's cool. I hope he's just like up there playing and it's not like a VR thing, you know? I hope he's just like got the goggles on and he's just pretending to drive a pod racer. I
think that's what he's doing. And I hope that it's actually a pod racer, not like a T-16 Skyhopper or something like that. I speculated on my instant reaction, which you can listen to on the podcast, but it's much better to watch on YouTube. My instant reaction of seeing the trailer for the first time.
You need the facial expressions.
Yeah, I speculated, like, what if he's actually seen footage of the Boonta Eve Classic and he's actually mimicking his dad's moves and he doesn't even realize that was his dad.
That'd be cool.
Or maybe he does. Maybe Owen told him, like, hey, this is what your dad used to do before he became a spice freighter pilot.
Right. I mean, that would help sell that like fiction that they've created of him just being like this hotshot famous. I keep saying hotshot this this episode. I don't know why that's in my head, but being this kind of like great. I got the impression that they had kind of been telling him that like his father was this like famous kind of legendary pilot, you know, and so I like that maybe that
he was at least a great pilot, right? And so that would lend to what you're saying. Like, okay, we can't tell him the truth that he was a Jedi, but we can at least say like, hey, yeah, he was kind of famous around these parts. Like he won the Boonta Eve Classic. Yeah, here's footage of him. That would be kind of cool. That would be neat to see how like Luke kind of handles that information and he's mimicking his dad, or he could just be playing.
Yeah. He could just be dreaming about being a pilot somewhere, you know.
But that's what I love about the image that we see, and what Obi-Wan watching him is like, you can't help but think Obi-Wan is thinking about how he first met Anakin in The Phantom Menace. Like when he was a young Padawan, he met Anakin. He actually called him another useless life form at first. Like they didn't really jive together, but that friendship, that brotherhood grew after Qui-Gon's death. And Obi-Wan was never the father that Anakin needed to be, but he was more like a brother to him.
Exactly.
So it's really cool to see Obi-Wan watching over his son and thinking about Anakin. You know he's thinking about Anakin in that moment.
Yeah. And I love that, like, I mean, I'm so excited to see Ewan's performance, just because A, he's so good all the time, but B, like that shot right there, just that reaction shot to seeing Luke, there's you can see the conflict on his face there.
Yeah.
It's like I think he's both happy to see this kid until he's like proud kind of in a way, but then it's obviously bringing back all the feelings of his own failures, like concern for Anakin right now, like what's happening, you know? I mean, I guess he thinks he's dead, but
Yeah,
maybe
I mean,
not.
like, if you kind of look at one side of his face, it looks like he's smiling. The other side of his face looks like he's upset. He's doing a perfect two-face thing going on here.
Yeah.
So that is, I mean, it does look like he is both proud and also upset. And so that's really good acting on Ewan's part there. And then we actually hear Obi-Wan say, "Stay hidden." So that's the continuation of the line before, which is, "The fight is done. We lost. Stay hidden." He's probably talking to a Jedi here.
Yeah.
Right?
He's gotta be.
He's got to be. Well, we'll talk about it because I think there's something going on Tatooine specifically, and that's why we see so many Inquisitors in Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
There's something going on there, and I don't think it actually has to do with Obi-Wan. Yeah. So then we cut to black, and then a gold Lucasfilm logo appears as the Duel of Fates plays. And it's a new rendition of the Duel of Fates. It's a great choice of music for this trailer. I've got some irresponsible speculation at the end of this podcast that is connected to this.
Yeah.
And the logo disappears like the sands of Tatooine. Again, like even the Lucasfilm logo kind of becomes sand and just drifts away. And what did you feel when you heard that music? Because to me, it is like right behind the main Star Wars theme in terms of the most recognizable Star Wars song of all time, right?
Yeah, it's immediately iconic. And it's charged. Like it means a certain thing in Star Wars, right? Like even just from the name of the song, Duel of the Fates, like I think like it perfectly encapsulates the active struggle of good versus evil, you know? And Star Wars has always been so kind of refreshing because the bad guys are so clean cut bad and the good guys are so clean cut good, you know. But there's a little gray area in the middle there. And the fact that they're playing Duel of the Fates, it means it's going down, you know.
It's going down. It's definitely going down, and I love it too because like I think a lot of people like, okay, the Duel of the Fates is Qui-Gon versus Obi-Wan, or Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Maul, and that is literally the Duel of the Fates for Anakin, right? Like the whole purpose of that fight was for Anakin, and ultimately the good guys actually lost even though they beat Darth Maul. But I think one can argue that the whole Star Wars saga is the Duel of the Fates. Like the Skywalker saga is that. And that's I know like the script had some problems, but the Duel of the Fates script, the Colin Trevorrow's, like it's cool that it was named the Duel of the Fates to me. Just because
I haven't read the script, so
it's something.
I'm not going to comment, but
it's something. I can confirm it is something. So it's just cool because I think that it's the whole Skywalker saga. It's the Duel of the Fates. It's never really over because it is, like you said, good versus evil, and what happens in the in between is really interesting. Then we emerge back on a greenish ocean landscape, and we see an Inquisitor shuttle flying above it. So I want to take some time to explain exactly where we are and who these Inquisitors are that Matt kind of talked about at the beginning. And so this is actually the moon of Nur, and Nur is actually a moon of Mustafar. So it's right next to Mustafar. Mustafar is the lava planet that Anakin and Obi-Wan had their duel in Revenge of the Sith. It's also the location of Darth Vader's castle that we see in Rogue One.
So and there's a lot of really cool stories in the Darth Vader comic line centering around the castle in Mustafar.
Yes. And it's cool because like this moon is right next to that, right? So it's like Vader has his eyes on the Inquisitors because they're right there.
Yeah, they're right within reach.
Yep. And we have seen it before, like you said, in Charles Soule's Darth Vader comics. I think that's an extremely important storyline for this particular show.
Yeah.
And it's worth the read. It's probably some of the best Star Wars comics I've ever read. It takes place immediately after Revenge of the Sith, and it's about how Darth Vader really earns his name, his lightsaber, and we see the origins of the Inquisitors as well. So it's a really great read.
Yeah, for sure.
And we also see this moon and this fortress in the game Jedi Fallen Order, which takes place 5 years before this show. So this is 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. Jedi Fallen Order takes place right in between Revenge of the Sith and this show. And you actually see this same fortress and visit it, and it looks exactly the same. So I love the consistency there. I love that. The shuttle is flying towards the Fortress Inquisitorius. So you can see in that how it's kind of it's like a giant spike in the ocean.
Yeah.
And if you squint, you can actually see an Imperial shuttle landed there that Vader probably uses. That's probably Vader's shuttle. And this is the headquarters of the Inquisitors. So what are the Inquisitors? Essentially, like Max said earlier, they're Jedi hunters. Their sole task is tracking down survivors of Order 66. Majority of them, if not all, were once Jedi, or potentially the children that were taken during the Clone Wars by Cad Bane. And we saw that story arc in the Clone Wars. And we actually first met the Inquisitors in Star Wars Rebels, which takes place about 5 to 7 years after the events of this show. Again, I think that Lucasfilm is not doing themselves any favors if they don't do the timeline at the beginning of each Star Wars thing that comes out, because it's confusing if you just hear it. You know what I mean? I think if you could see it, it would make a lot more sense. The leader of the Inquisitors is the Grand Inquisitor. We don't actually have a name for him, but I'm thinking we'll probably get one in this show.
Yeah. And I feel like it's been long enough, and when we were really only dealing with like the one Grand Inquisitor, right, at the time, and so it was easy to keep track of. But when you've got multiple Inquisitors, I think it gets a little bit trickier. So yeah, I bet he'll get a name. But he was actually a temple guard, for the Jedi Temple. So, that's kind of his origin story. We get to see him kind of in like a flashback, type thing in Rebels, as a temple guard, before his turn. So it's cool.
It's actually really interesting too. He is one of the temple guards that was at Ahsoka Tano's trial in the Clone Wars when she was on trial, and that's a whole can of worms we won't get into. He's a Pauan, that means he's from Utapau. We see that planet in Revenge of the Sith.
Yep.
And he was played by Jason Isaacs in the cartoon in Rebels, but now he's being played by Rupert Friend. And let's just go ahead and talk about his looks here, because
it's gonna take some adjustment, right? I think the character definitely looks different on screen, like in live action, than design and animation. That's gonna happen to some degree, right? Adapting a character design that was originally in animation when there's really not rules, nothing has to be real or made or fabricated or anything like that. It's whatever you want it to be. And then taking a character like that and adapting it for live action is really difficult.
It is.
And we also, a lot of times, trailer stuff, visuals are still being worked on too. Yep. So you never know if this is actually like Saw Gerrera, had hair in the trailer,
right?
And then didn't in the film and stuff like that, or maybe it was vice versa.
Vice
I can't
versa.
even remember.
Yeah.
So I mean, stuff can change. As it is now, not thrilled with the design, I guess.
It's probably my least favorite adaptation from animation to live action.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I don't think it's going to ruin my enjoyment of Obi Wan Kenobi at all, and it shouldn't yours either.
Right. Correct. Yeah. And I mean, like, that kind of stuff is totally fair game to critique, but also, like, suspension of disbelief is a requirement for watching any kind of anything. Right. So,
and like a lot of people were talking about how like round his head looks, because in the animated series it's a little longer. Like you see in Revenge of the Sith that the Powans have a little longer heads.
Yeah, I think that's where the dissonance comes in for me, is because we have seen Powans in live action and they looked better.
Yeah, right.
But we'll see.
It's okay. Yeah, I actually think what's making the like it would be easier to take in if his eyes were yellow, because in the animated series his eyes are yellow and they're not in this, and so it's like I think that like if his eyes were yellow, you wouldn't even notice the head that much.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be too that like, maybe Rupert's he's just giving such a performance that they didn't want to cover it up with a bunch of heavy prosthetics and stuff like that. Really? So like that can definitely be the case. We'll see. As is right now though, it's going to take some getting used to, I think.
Well, I wonder why they didn't just get Jason Isaacs.
Yeah, you never know in situations like that. I'm guessing he
probably was already busy at that point or something, because I think he would totally do it.
Right. And I mean, you also never know if like just people's physical like performances can be different from vocal performances, and like those like voice acting and acting, what's the best word for that? I don't know.
Live acting?
Yeah. Both of those things take incredible talent and are, incredible disciplines of performance, but they are separate disciplines. Like different skills, are used in voice acting versus live action. Like you can think about all the times they've cast like an animated movie with a bunch of movie stars and it's just bad because, they don't know how to voice act.
Right.
Like physical performances can come into stuff too. And I'm not saying like, he'd give a bad one, but it could just be not what they wanted visually for the character or something like that.
Yes. And my only counterpoint to that is Jason Isaacs is he's been in several movies. I mean, he was in the Harry Potter movies. He's the bad guy in The Patriot.
Oh, is that guy?
Yeah, it's that guy.
I didn't realize. Okay, I truly have never put that together. That guy's amazing.
I know.
And actually would look way...
I know. All
right. Counterpoint. Will sustained.
Well, it has to be a scheduling conflict. That's the only thing.
Something like that.
That makes sense. So, anyways, I'm not thrilled about the way the Grand Inquisitor looks, but like if you haven't watched Rebels, I don't think it even matters to you. Number one, of like what he looks like, and then number two, I think you might be totally spot on. Like in terms of like there might be some limitations to Rupert Friend's performance if they did it a certain way. Like if you can't move, you can't really perform.
Yeah.
So who cares? Because it's an alien anyways that's fake and in space.
Right,
so
exactly.
It's not going to bother me.
Yeah, at the end of the day.
Yeah. And so, okay, so before we break down the rest of these images, let's talk about what the Grand Inquisitor says here, because he's the one that's voicing over kind of the second half of the trailer. And I'm just going to go ahead and read what he says, and then we'll discuss it. He says, "The key to hunting Jedi is patience. Jedi cannot help what they are. Their compassion leaves a trail. The Jedi code is like an itch. He cannot help it. Where is he?"
Yeah.
Wow.
It's incredible. It's terrifying.
Yes.
It like immediately the Grand Inquisitor is a credible threat just from the way he speaks. It's wild. I think he's also totally right. Like I think one of the main conflicts that points to me is Kenobi having to walk the line of not being able to be discovered because he has an ultimate mission, but then also not being able to stand on the sidelines when people were suffering,
Yeah.
that compassion is going to compel him to do something. And I love that the trailer's pointing to that conflict.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I feel like especially the prequel Jedi get a bad rap because I mean they got super wrapped up in things that they shouldn't be wrapped up in. I think we all know that. We all agree with that. But at the end of the day, like Obi Wan Kenobi is a Jedi, and what it means to be a Jedi is a good thing, even though the whole order did like a bad thing and lost their way. It doesn't mean like the Jedi code is bad or Jedi are bad. They are the ultimate, like what you should strive for as a good guy, right? And so like I love that even though he's saying it from like a demeaning point of view, like you said, everything he was saying is still true.
Yeah.
The Jedi code is like an itch. He cannot help it. Yeah. He's got to go save people because that's who he is. That's what they do.
Yeah.
So obviously we're going to see the Grand Inquisitor use some sort of bait situation here just based on what he's saying. It's interesting too. Like you got to remember the Grand Inquisitor used to be a Jedi himself. What has happened to him to make him turn like this?
Right. That's a great question. We really don't have enough information about who he was before, as like we know what he was doing, but we don't know anything about him like as a person,
as a Jedi.
I hope maybe we'll discover.
Maybe, yeah. That would be really, really cool. So let's get back to the images that we see and talk about it. So the shuttle flies towards the fortress, and then we cut to the Grand Inquisitor, what looks like to be on Tatooine, actually. So if you're looking at him, he's got the same thing on that he does in Rebels, but there's actually like a lapel pin or something on him that's not in Rebels.
Yeah, it's like a badge or a medallion, something like that. It seems to me like it's like a signifier of rank,
Right.
That's like the badge of his office as Grand Inquisitor.
Exactly. So, and they're on Tatooine. It looks like some sort of open air cantina. He's questioning somebody there, and then we see the fifth brother on the left of him, and then we actually see Reva as well on the right of him. We actually met the fifth brother in Star Wars Rebels as well.
Yep.
So my question is, why are they there? Why are they on Tatooine in the middle of nowhere? I'm just going to go ahead and say why I think that they're there. I think another Jedi has gone to Tatooine because it's like the furthest place away from Coruscant, right?
Exactly.
And then these Inquisitors catch on without this Jedi knowing that Obi-Wan is there.
Yeah.
And they're hiding on Tatooine, and Obi-Wan's going to have to deal with, like, what do I do here? Because do I help the Jedi or do I keep secret because Luke Skywalker's here? Like, Darth Vader's son is here. What do you do?
And this is exactly like what I've kind of been saying. I think the main conflict of the series is going to be. I think either it's going to be an adult Jedi who has made their way to Tatooine, like you said, or possibly there are Force sensitive children being born, because we know that like the Emperor almost has what's the name of the Cerebro? He almost has like Cerebro for Force sensitive children, kind of.
Yeah. Real creepy.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think people are expecting the main conflict to be him protecting Luke, but the Emperor and Vader are pretty unaware of Luke. Definitely Vader, who's directly in charge of the Inquisitors. And so like I don't think that can be the main conflict at this point. I think it's got to be, like you said, that Obi-Wan being torn between his ultimate purpose that, and the duel of the fates thing comes back into play, talking about like whose fate do I have to prioritize? Am I going to prioritize the fate of the galaxy, or am I going to potentially risk that to save one person, or a few people, or yeah, and I think the how he manages to walk that line is going to be the conflict of the series.
I also could see a situation where, now I don't know why they wouldn't calm this in, or maybe communications are down across the Outer Rim, but I could see a situation where they become aware of, hey, there's someone named Skywalker here. Let's get this information back to Vader, and then Obi-Wan hunting them down to stop him. Or
I mean, like, nobody would be looking for someone named Skywalker, though, I don't think, right?
I don't think they would be looking. I think they're definitely hunting a different Jedi on Tatooine. And
right.
I'll say why when we get to those images, that I really truly believe that there's other Jedi on Tatooine at this point. Like, they just get there, the Inquisitors find them there, they chase them there, and Obi-Wan and Owen are like, oh no. Like,
right. Yeah.
Because they would be thinking like they're going to discover us, and obviously they don't want that to happen. But like, I could see a situation like while they're there, they learn about a Skywalker or that name, or what's another reason Obi-Wan could leave? Princess Leia.
Yeah.
Like there's something going on with her as well. And they're trying to, I don't know. We'll see, but
yeah, I mean, like, Leia seems pretty well secure with Bail. I mean, like, in a prominent kind of place in society and stuff, but you never know.
Yeah, and so, or I could see another scenario where Obi-Wan is intentionally drawing the Inquisitors away from Tatooine to protect Luke. Like, they don't know his name yet. Like, and Obi-Wan kind of exposes himself. Well, that's the wrong term. he goes out there and like let everyone know that he's there, and then leaves Tatooine to get them to chase him away from Luke.
Yeah,
I could see that happening too.
Yeah.
But I think whatever reason Obi-Wan leaves Tatooine will be a good one.
For sure.
And then we cut to a transport heading to what looks to be Mos Eisley. In the distance in Mos Eisley, I think it's Mos Eisley, because there is a big tower there that I have not recognized before in Mos Eisley. I don't think this is Mos Espa, just based on how we saw so much of that city in the Book of Boba Fett. And then we see him riding in that transport, and again, like, I think that's the same transport, like the minor transport, if that's what he's working as, if this is like a take the bus to work type of thing.
Yeah, that's my impression.
And
everybody looks tired and bummed, so
two people away from him, I'm pretty sure that's a Snivian alien. Sitting there, and one of my favorite characters from the Knights of the Old Republic comics is a Snivian. That's a great species. Yeah, okay, so
they
then
really were on the nose when they named that species, huh?
So yeah, he's sitting there. Obi-Wan's looking sad with the other people, and then we cut to black, and then we open back up inside the fortress of the Inquisitors, and the fifth brother sits at a table. Another Inquisitor sits near him. I'm not sure what her designation is. It's probably like the 10th sister or something like that. They're
second
all called
sister,
that.
I don't know,
Yeah, they're like, second sister's actually in Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh, right.
So yeah, they're all like brothers and sisters. That's their designation. And if you look on their backs, you can see the spinning lightsabers are on their back, just like in Star Wars Rebels. And then standing before them is the new character named Reva. It's interesting that she doesn't have like a sister name yet. I'm wondering if she's trying to join the Inquisitors. Like, she's not quite made it in yet. She also has a different lightsaber than all the Inquisitors as well.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think that's a likely thing. Like she's a recruit, and I mean it almost looks like she's reporting here.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Or she could just have kind of a different role within the Inquisitorius.
Yep. And we got some stormtroopers guarding the doors. Also notice that it's underwater, which is very consistent with Fallen Order in that whole sequence towards the end of that game. Then we actually cut to a pretty dark scene in Mos Eisley. We see a pair of boots hanging in front of a crowd.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that's the Jedi.
do you think so?
Yes, I think they caught the Jedi, and this is the end of them catching the Jedi.
Oh man.
If it's not a Jedi, it's somebody who like didn't answer their questions correctly or something. But
Yeah, I was thinking it could be like, I mean, it could be that. It could be, I mean, we don't know the context in which these boots are hanging up, you know.
I don't think someone's sitting on a ledge though, just based on the crowded square looking up in horror.
I think they're actually on just like a pretty shallow speeder bike. They're just flying over everybody.
Oh man, it's Toro Calican's father. Yeah. Then we get a quick cut of Reva holding her lightsaber and whirling around to Owen Lars, who's watching in the crowded square. And I think Reva has done this, and she's basically saying to the crowd, like, if any of you are hiding Jedi or knew about this, you better tell me. And that's like Owen Lars is obviously going to be like, oh no. Like, he's going to start getting nervous, right?
Yeah.
He's definitely disturbed. Then we cut to a scene of Reva on a roof. And one of the images that we saw from EW and in the trailer, it has like a VT7. It looks like VT7. It actually spells in Arabesh ER, which is interesting.
It's like a hospital.
This must be Daiyu, the new planet mentioned in the EW article.
Yeah.
Also, there's some Arabesh in the background. In this specific image, when it kind of goes around her shoulder, it spells out milk.
Nice.
Yeah.
I really like the look of this new location. Like to me it bridges that gap between kind of the shiny, flashy prequel era, but then like things kind of took a turn, you know? And I think it kind of captures that. Like it's you know, it looks more kind of lively and modern, or you know, like, not modern, but advanced. I guess it's hard talking about this kind of stuff in Star Wars when all of it's happening at the same time, you know. But yeah, like I like the location. I think it perfectly encapsulates kind of the time period and gives us a little glimpse into sort of the struggle of the galaxy at large.
Yeah, what I like about it is obviously it's a city planet, but it doesn't look anything like Coruscant.
Right, exactly. You like it looks. I love the EW article kind of pointing out it's Hong Kong inspired. Like it looks like a Wong Kar-wai movie or something like that. Like it's cool.
And then after we see the milk and Arabesh, we cut to the Inquisitor shuttle landing in Mos Eisley. And then we fade in to see an Imperial officer played by Indira Varma from Game of Thrones emerging from a ship of some kind, marching forward. And I can't take credit for this, but some people have broke down even what her like little badge thing, the number of red squares, means that she's a captain in the Imperial military.
Nice.
Yeah. My guess is that she will be the foe to Owen, while the Inquisitors will be the foe to Obi-Wan.
That makes sense. Kind of more of the street level baddie and then everybody with a lightsaber has their own thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm excited to see her. She's got the march down for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to Daiyu and the unknown Inquisitor walking in front of a line of people. This is actually very similar to the opening of Fallen Order, where they do this exact same thing at the beginning of this game to find Jedi. They kind of line some people up. She kind of looks like a Twi'lek, but that is not a Twi'lek.
No, the Leku are wrong.
Yeah.
They'd be
much longer.
More from the top, and they'd be longer.
Yeah.
Is that perhaps Kit Fisto's species and not
Ooh, maybe like a younger one or something. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really know, and I don't know what female Nautiluns look like or anything like that either. So
it all depends on how much she smiles.
Okay. If she's grinning, then we know.
We know.
I don't know. I like to think that's just a Kit Fisto personality trait.
For sure. Kit's just a happy guy.
Yeah.
Until he dies.
He did so doing what he loved, grinning ear to ear.
Palpatine just stabbed him right in the heart, and he was grinning like an idiot.
Yeah.
So there's some more Arabesh in this scene. In the background, it reads Has Mar, and I'm guessing when you finish that, it's going to say Market. So that's what the Arabesh reads back behind them in this lineup. And then we get a quick cut to hooded Obi-Wan seemingly watching this Inquisitor question these people. So again, we get confirmation that he is off Tatooine at some point, and this is not a flashback.
Right.
Okay. We get a new droid too. A quick brand new shot of a new droid, and the Arabesh on the front of the droid reads Ned.
It's the Ned Starkatron 3000.
Just based on the name Ned, do you think this is going to be a funny droid?
I mean, Ned's a kind of a funny name. No offense to any Neds out there. We love you, Neds.
We
but
do.
I mean, like, I feel like anything that ends kind of like Ed is also like the funny hyena on Lion King is named Ed. So it just kind of fits in there.
True. The droid is talking to a stormtrooper. Then either the droid or the stormtrooper brandishes some kind of weapon. It looks like a police stick. It's actually kind of hard to determine, is that a stormtrooper holding it or is it actually Ned, because we don't really know what Ned's bottom looks like.
Right. Don't really have or if he would be holding something like that or not, Right. I have no idea.
Yep. So I don't know. Kind of interesting. I saw some speculation today that it's Captain Rex holding that police stick, because if you look at his armor, it's like almost yellowish, and then there's like this blue thing on his top. I think that would mean that it's Ned, because he's got kind of a yellowish blue thing going on.
Yeah. I would venture to agree. I think if we get Captain Rex anywhere in the new live action shows, it's going to be Ahsoka. Yeah, but even then, I'm very, very doubtful.
Right. Then we get a quick cut of Reva running across some falling platform on the rooftops of Daiyu, and she leaps through the air. Then we cut to black and open back up on the Grand Inquisitor brandishing his red spinning lightsaber. And he's asking a bald man, where is he? Now, some people have speculated that this bald man might be a clone trooper. Just based on the shape of the head, it kind of looks like Tamora Morrison's head shape. I don't think that's the case. To me, if you look closely at the back of his head...
I was about to say.
It looks like a Lobot-esque computer on the back of the guy's head.
Yeah, he's still got his ears, but behind it is that same kind of band thing.
Yeah.
Wait, does Lobot have his ears?
I think it's over.
I'm pretty sure that his thing covers his ears.
Yeah. If this is a computer type thing, I think it's like a prototype version of it. It's not.
I gotta look up if Lobot has ears or not right now.
Yeah, that's super important.
He does not.
He does not.
Yeah, confirmed. Great.
Maybe this is Lobot before he became Lobot. And his name was Lobot before that, which is weird.
I mean, he had the thing always. He just like had to let his mind go into the cybernetics in a different way in that comic.
The Lobot verse.
Yeah. The origin. If you want to know the origin of Lobot, you can read the Lando comic from Marvel. It's actually pretty fun.
Yeah, it is pretty good. I love the spinning lightsabers, Mac. Do you like the spinning lightsabers?
I do. I do wonder if we will see them.
Helicopter.
Yeah, provide flight like they do in Rebels, because I feel like that might garner some criticism from the public at large.
I hope
they did when it happened in Rebels. So
people were so mad when it happened in a cartoon. I can't imagine it in a live action.
That's what I'm saying. I personally love it. Like, why not in a world where lasers make a pew pew noise in space and big starships sink when they're destroyed? I'm all for a spinning helicopter lightsaber that allows you to fly.
I love the implication of the spinning lightsabers, though, because it's basically saying, like, yeah, these guys can use the Force, but they can't use it like Darth Maul. Like,
right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not quite as advanced as that, but they can use it.
Yeah. They got to have, like, the idea is, like, the mechanics in the lightsaber kind of speed stuff up and help compensate for other, like, none of these Inquisitors are like full-fledged Sith. They're not super powerful or anything like that. And I would venture to say that, like, they weren't any of the most renowned Jedi. Right. You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The Grand Inquisitor was a temple guard, so I mean that kind of
right.
I feel like didn't trust him out on the battlefield of the Clone Wars.
Right. I feel like that's the caliber of Jedi you've got. Nothing against temple guards. I don't know, but it always has kind of seemed like maybe if you got in too much trouble in the academy, you ended up as a temple guard. Yeah. You know,
that's the implication that it kind of gives away in Star Wars. I will say the temple guard lightsabers are legit. They've got these double-bladed yellow lightsabers.
Yeah, and
that's pretty awesome.
The handle's like a little longer. Mm-hmm. And the blades are a little shorter, I think, if I'm recalling correctly.
Yeah, it's almost like a pike. It kind of looks like
it's like a halberd thing. Yeah,
yeah,
they're fun.
There's some stormtroopers.
Maybe I'm confusing it with the spider alien from Force Unleashed.
Maybe.
Who's to say at this point?
Who's to say? There's some stormtroopers behind the Grand Inquisitor. I believe they're on Daiyu as well.
Yeah. Got some neon in there to keep it the continuity going.
Yeah, and then the title card reads Between Darkness, and then we open up on the fifth brother leading a contingent of stormtroopers through the streets of Daiyu. It's cool to see the fifth brother in live action. We saw him in Star Wars Rebels. He's played by Han in the Fast and Furious movies.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And there, I've got some Arabesh translations for you. You ready?
Let's hear it.
We've got Market.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Milk again.
All right.
And we have Gungan
I'm glad that
snacks.
this planet is getting their calcium. Sorry, I totally talked over you. We got Gungan snacks.
Gungan snacks.
Frogs?
Maybe. Ooh, I think Grogu's got to visit Daiyu.
Man, Din, get Grogu to Daiyu.
Quick.
Take him to the frog shop.
I love that image though of the fifth brother and the stormtroopers. Like there's so many lights behind them. And it's just like
this. Ooh. Yeah, this is the part that really looks like a Wong Kar-wai movie with all the neon and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. I can't wait to see how like that city planet feels to be on. Like what the general mood is. You know, if it's gonna be kind of like Coruscant, where it's a little bit more like New York, or if you're gonna have like.
I kind of imagine. Like the place, the rings of Crafine or whatever that Cassian was on in the beginning of Rogue One, kind of like that. Yeah, that's cool. Ooh, Andor, I'm excited for that.
Got that coming up later this year too.
Yeah,
so much fun Star Wars to take in this year.
Then we get a really quick shot of what looks to be 2 escape pods launching into space. Mm-hmm. Pretty interesting. I wonder whose those are. Then we fade back to Mos Eisley, and a man with dark hair tries to get past Reva, but she ignites her red lightsaber, cutting him off. Now, if you look closely at his left hand, there's some sort of tattoo on his left hand. I believe this man to be a Jedi or a former Padawan, and this is the person that the Inquisitors are hunting on Tatooine. I believe this person came there unknowingly, like didn't realize Obi-Wan and Luke were hiding there, and he just happens to show up, and the Inquisitors show up, kind of starting this whole journey. I think this is the first episode of the show.
Yeah, that would make sense. I kind of hope that maybe this Jedi is going to lead Obi-Wan to try to help or rescue or save, like, maybe a few different ones. Like, maybe it's just, like, whenever, somebody is close enough so that, like, he feels like he can get away from Tatooine for a second, he goes and helps. Like, I kind of want that, like, almost like a, I don't know, like an Underground Railroad type situation going on, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You kind of see hints of that in this next thing that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
A little bit. I think that definitely is going on in this show. Whether or not that's Obi-Wan's goal we remain to be seen. Like, I think Obi-Wan's going to really struggle with this. I think he's going to be like, do I help Jedi or not? Like,
right.
What is my goal here? Is it to protect Luke or revive the Jedi Order?
Right. And I mean, he's kind of been burnt by the Jedi in a way too, you know? I think he's had enough distance to see that, like, what they were doing is, like, wasn't the course that they should have taken, and he's still dealing with his own personal feelings of failure with Anakin and stuff like that. So there's so much internal conflict that I can't wait to explore and see how that motivates him to act in whatever situations arise.
Absolutely. And then we cut to black and we get the title card back up. It says "and defeat." So far it said "between darkness and defeat." And then we open back up to see a hand graze a drawn Jedi symbol on the wall. My first thought, Mac, when I saw this scene, I actually thought about, like, it reminded me of the fish symbol in, like, early Christianity when they would hide from the Roman Empire.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of where my mind went.
Yeah.
Or it could just be like a kid drawing, like, reminiscing of, like, the Jedi used to be something. But the way that I think this is Reva's hand, it's like she is finding where they might be.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, like, hobo signs.
Mm-hmm.
They'd have all kinds of symbols to etch in, like, fence posts and stuff like that to communicate with each other, to tell them about, the house that is here or whatever it is. It almost kind of seems like that to me.
Or even the Mandalorian covert, right?
Exactly.
Except they can't hide their painting like the Mandalorians do, and the Mando vision stuff.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It's cool. I like that there's kind of these continuities popping up where there's different groups kind of maybe doing the same thing to some degree in Star Wars, like the Mandos in hiding. Like
they did a lot better. The Mandos hide a lot better, I think.
I mean, they did not have
crazy.
an entire force-wielding branch of the Imperial military designated to wiping them out, but
True, but it's crazy because it's so easy to spot a Mandalorian, right? It's like, well, there's a Mandalorian walking right there.
It's really, if they just changed up their helmets, they could pretty much
get rid of that T-shape.
They want it.
You can do whatever you want to.
Just change any other shape of visor. You can just hide in plain sight.
They won't do it though.
Yeah, no.
Stubborn.
Old habits die hard,
Then we get an alley shot of Reva standing across from someone holding a blaster, and I love that you can see her shadow on the floor there.
Yeah,
I believe this person holding the blaster is Obi-Wan because of the next quick shot. And Obi-Wan doesn't want to reveal himself to be Obi Wan Kenobi yet, or like having his lightsaber, very much like a Kanan Jarrus thing in Star Wars Rebels. Yeah. Towards the beginning of it, he's not using his lightsaber; he's using a blaster because
right. Well, it's a dead giveaway, right?
Yeah, right.
Everybody can see it for
Right.
just for miles, basically, and only certain kinds of people have them, you know?
Right. And then, yeah, go
also,
ahead.
we have Obi-Wan is one of the few Jedi we've seen actually use a blaster in like a movie or something like that, because that's how he eventually deals with General Grievous.
Is Luke the only other one? No, Ben Solo does in
Ben
Rise
Solo.
of Skywalker.
Yep.
Rey.
Yeah, but I mean they're few and far between. I'm sure somebody will remind us of another time, but
That might be it, though.
yeah.
Speaking of Rey, I didn't mention this, but like, not only do you have the parallel at the beginning with Luke playing and acting like he's flying something, in the beginning of The Force Awakens, Rey does the same thing by putting on the X-Wing helmet, right?
Yeah.
That's
Well, I mean,
cool.
Luke as like a 19-year-old is doing that too. He's like in his room with his little model thing, you know? I mean, I get it. I built Legos this month, so
I love it.
no worries.
Luke is one of us.
Right.
I
A
love
nerd.
Yeah, he really is. He really is. So then we cut to a blaster battle on the roofs of what is probably Daiyu. I believe this to be Obi-Wan. I watched this several times. He's wearing the same cloak, the same clothes. He's got the same hair. I think that's Obi-Wan firing the blasters on enemies, which leads me to believe that's Obi-Wan in the previous shot.
Yeah.
Then this is super interesting, Mac. We get a shot of some smoke exploding out of, I guess, like a chimney or something. And then green and white feathered birds are flying out of the smoke. And these look exactly like convors, the type of bird that Mirai is, the bird that seems to be following Ahsoka Tano around everywhere.
Yeah, and also highly reminiscent of the daughter from Mortis to me. I've
got some info on that.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so like there's a reason you put those two together. Okay? You ready for this?
I'm ready. Lay it on me.
Okay, Mirai was a female convor with spiritual ties to the daughter, a force wielder from Mortis. And we'll talk about that probably in our Obi-Wan breakdown. That is too much to talk about on this episode. She appeared in various depictions of the Force wielders alongside the daughter. It was believed by some that the convor in these depictions was a servant of the daughter, or even a manifestation of the daughter herself in another form. Mirai became a friend of former Jedi Padawan Ahsoka Tano, whom the daughter transferred her life essence into prior to her death, and came to accompany and watch over her. Tano claimed that she owed the convor her life. So we actually see a green and white bird that looks exactly like that in Star Wars Rebels. We actually see one sitting on a branch in The Mandalorian when Din meets Ahsoka Tano. So basically it represents what Mac was saying, the daughter, which is like a force god. Again, not going to get into that right now.
There's a time and place. We're already at an hour 15, so.
But that's really interesting to me because that's got to be a direct reference to Mirai.
Yeah, it's got to, and it would make sense because Obi-Wan. This is, I assume we're going to get his first kind of venture into communing with people who have become one with the Force, right? And so I think that's just an indication to me that we're going to do some wild, crazy, trippy Force stuff. And that's some of my favorite kind of Star Wars content is weird Force stuff.
What's really interesting is, okay, we see in the Clone Wars, they actually go to Mortis and they meet the father who is like representing of like all of the Force, and then the daughter, which is like the light side, and the son, which is like the dark side.
And the son is highly. This may have been what you were about to say. I'm sorry if I'm
go ahead.
cutting
No,
off,
go ahead. Go ahead.
The son looks
like the Grand Inquisitor.
Just like the Grand Inquisitor, pretty much.
Uh-huh.
That's interesting.
It is interesting, isn't it?
Interesting.
I would definitely, if you have not watched the Clone Wars, watch that arc. Because I don't think it's just important for potentially this series. I think it's very important for the Ahsoka series.
Yeah.
And then there's an episode in Star Wars Rebels called The World Between Worlds that gets into deep Force stuff, and you see a depiction of the father, son, and daughter on the outside of this Jedi temple that leads into the world between worlds.
Yep.
I think what these birds are kind of representing is kind of what you said. It's like almost like the light side itself is watching over and following what Obi-Wan is doing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's almost as if like the idea that those episodes present is like the light side almost has its own, I don't know how to, because they're not gods, but like has its own will, and the dark side has its own will, and there's like this battle happening between them.
Yeah,
with
and
the
I mean,
father reigning over it. It's weird.
And we do not have time for this conversation, but it's really. I feel like they're like just manifestation. They're not real. They're just different ways that the Force
Maybe
manifests itself to different folks, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the Force is real, and it's all the
Right.
same thing,
Yeah,
but there's
weird.
different parts of it, and you have to handle the different parts differently.
It's some of my favorite Star Wars content because it makes you think about Star Wars in a way that you've never thought about before. And some people,
and then about our world too.
yeah, some people don't like it for that reason.
Right.
But I like it for that reason because it brings something different. So it's really interesting to see these birds, these convors, and one specifically follows Ahsoka. Does that mean we see a younger Ahsoka maybe intervene here? Maybe. We'll see.
Maybe.
I doubt it. I
I would
that would be too
prefer
confusing.
not to.
Yeah.
Just because I love what Ahsoka's doing in the TV shows right now, and I love that we're going to get to see the rest of kind of her story. I'm good with that. I'd like to focus in a little bit with this one.
Yeah. So the title card ends. Remember, it said between darkness and defeat. And then it says, hope survives. And then we get a shot of Obi-Wan back on Tatooine, looking down at something in concern. And then he looks up slowly, and we cut to the Obi-Wan title card. And then we hear Darth Vader's breathing.
Yep.
And then we see that really cool lightsaber cut that leads to the Disney Plus logo. That was pretty
I
cool.
really enjoyed the Disney Plus reveal. That was a nice little treat at the end of this one. I never expected to be pumped about, but I liked it.
So I know we're going a little long, but I've got to give my irresponsible speculation at this point because it
Let's
kind of
hear
ties into everything that we talked about here. What if Darth Maul is in this show? Now, stick with me here. This is 1 year after the movie Solo. This takes place 1 year after the movie Solo. Darth Maul is alive during this time period. He's in charge of Crimson Dawn. And then when we meet him again on the timeline, it's in Star Wars Rebels. And we meet him on Malachor.
Mm-hmm.
And who is hunting him? Inquisitors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, here's what I'm thinking. It's possible because I think had they not done this in Star Wars Rebels, spoiler alert, Darth Maul actually finds Kenobi on Tatooine. They have one last duel. Kenobi takes him out in Star Wars Rebels, which takes place after this. Had they not done that in Rebels, I think the main villain of this show would 100% be Maul.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense, number one, to have him be Kenobi's foe.
Right.
But there was like this comic that came out right after Revenge of the Sith. It was called Star Wars Visionaries. One of the comics, like little things, was about Darth Maul returning. It had this is where that idea first came from, and then they actually made it happen in the Clone Wars. But it had Darth Maul returning to the Lars homestead, like he found it, and it has Owen Lars and Obi-Wan take Darth Maul down together. They work together to take him down. Now, that's not going to happen on this show because
we've already seen how that story ends.
Yeah, Maul does not find Kenobi until Star Wars Rebels on Tatooine.
Right. It would have to be off-world, and Kenobi's going off-world.
Exactly. So, and we kind of, from the concept art and what they've already been telling us and prepping us for, we know Obi Wan Kenobi will be fighting Darth Vader. Like, they're going to have a fight. I don't think it's like a metaphysical battle. I think it's an actual physical battle. So you need to like wrap your head around that, because if it doesn't fit with your head canon, you're about to be made to, like, that's what's happening here. Okay. How cool would it be? I kind of like this idea. I'm not going to lie. How cool would it be? You got Obi-Wan fighting Vader on Mustafar again, maybe through Vader's castle, and Maul shows up. It's like a 3-way battle. Because then that would allow Obi-Wan a chance to get away if Maul's still there fighting Vader.
Right. And I would have to guess in a physical conflict, Vader takes Obi-Wan during this time pretty easy.
I think he takes Maul too.
Oh yeah. I mean, so, he's supposed to be basically just like the embodiment of physical prowess. You know, he's just the scariest thing that the galaxy's ever seen at this point.
And the way they're describing Vader in the show is that.
Right, like Rogue One.
Right. So
which was terrifying, and I loved it.
You might be asking, why would Maul fight Vader? Well, he's definitely against Palpatine and Vader at this point in the timeline. Like, he feels like he's been betrayed by Sidious, and he feels like he's been betrayed by Obi-Wan. Those are his two enemies.
Right. And, I mean, I think, like, there's a sense of jealousy, right? He's like, in the Clone Wars, he talks about, or maybe it was Rebels, but he was talking about, like, I was the apprentice of the most powerful being in the galaxy, right? And so I think he would be jealous. Like, he would think that, like, Darth Vader is occupying my spot.
Yes.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's likely? No.
I'm like, there is a lot already going on in the show, and I think Maul, as an addition, would be bordering on too much, depending on how it goes.
Yeah.
But you are absolutely correct in that all the pieces are there for that to happen.
Yeah. Again, I don't think it's likely, but it occurred to me that it's possible, so I wanted to talk about it, and so now we have. So maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But I do think this whole show is leading to a confrontation between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
The only issue that I think, the main issue people are going to run into with that is the fact that Darth Vader says in A New Hope, when I left you, I was but the learner, and now I'm the master.
He could be talking in the, when I left you as an apprentice, right? You could, retroactively make that retcon. I was looking for the term retcon. It just was not coming. Retroactively came to me before retcon.
Now, Ewan looks older, obviously, in the show. He's graying and stuff, but he still looks like Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan.
Right.
And we're just 9 years away from Alec Guinness, Obi-Wan. Do you think it's possible some sort of Force thing happens where it, like, ages him significantly? Because when we see him in Rebels, he's like Alec Guinness.
Right.
Which is a few years after this.
My initial thought was always, like, before any of the new media, I always rectified that in my head with alcoholism. Just hard living on Tatooine made him that way.
Yeah.
But that's a joke. But I don't know. I wouldn't want to see like a aged by Force lightning thing or anything, but I don't know. I think it could be really cool if, because we're getting weird with the Force, maybe he has to step into the world between worlds somehow and actually lives out that time and just comes back older. And that could also help with concealing his identity. So like if stuff gets hot for him, they'd be looking for somebody much younger. There's potential there that could help explain kind of that difference. It could also be that we're gonna ignore it and just tell the story, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities there.
I feel like they're going to ignore it. But also another possibility before we sign off here. Maybe it's force healing because we've seen it takes a lot out of Grogu. It takes a lot out of Rey. And it literally killed Kylo Ren. So
right.
Maybe. I don't know.
What? Oh, man. There's some crazy poetry in that. If like Obi-Wan actually managed to bring somebody back to life with the Force, and that's what it did, because the poetry of he lost his apprentice and like due to that pursuit, I like that like irony.
I don't know if I even dare say it, but what if he did that for Luke? Like something happens to Luke at some point.
I was thinking there was a super complicated story where he does that with Anakin or with Vader. I don't think there's time in in a season like that. I think that has to be like a series of novels to get there. But
I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited to see how this show plays out, what leads Obi-Wan off Tatooine, the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Owen, why Owen calls him a crazy old wizard, don't visit him. You know what I'm saying? Like something has to happen there. I mean,
that also could have just been a ruse to keep the secret safe, you know.
I do think we're going to see an Obi-Wan Owen team up by the end of this. Like they definitely help each other at some point and fight off bad guys together.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm super excited. We have done an hour and a half on 1 minute and 46 seconds of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You want to go 20 more minutes and have a minute for every second of that's not even the right math.
Listen,
we're already there.
If this is any indication of what this show will be like, I think we're going to have a really fun time on this podcast. I think you're going to have a fun time listening. I think the voicemail hotlines are going to be incredible. All the theories that we're going to have fun with as we watch this 6-episode series starting May 25th. So make sure you join us on May 25th for the full scene-by-scene breakdown. And, of course, we'll do more episodes leading up to that. Yeah. We'll do a History of Obi-Wan episode talking about Mortis and stuff like that, the Clone Wars stuff. But this has been fun, and I cannot wait for this show to come out. And I can't wait to hear what other people think after listening to the breakdown.
Yeah, for sure. Find the voicemail hotline number in the show notes. Let us know what you think. Hit us up on Twitter, all that. So we'll talk to you real soon. But until then, keep the watch.